I get questions about eating amaranth and redroot pigweed. Can you eat the leaves raw? Yes. Can you use them in smoothies? Yes. Can you eat the roots? Yes. Of course, the details matter. And that's what this video is about, the details of eating raw amaranth leaves and eating amaranth roots. Hey, welcome to Haphazard Homestead. I'm Holly Chris. I'm glad you're here. It's been a while. In this video, I want to focus on the young amaranth plants from about this size and smaller. There are a lot of different kinds of amaranth, and they're more alike when they're young like this. The weeds in my garden are Amaranthus retroflexus, the redroot pigweed, or redroot amaranth. But if you have a different kind of amaranth, I think this video should still work for you. And if you have the spiny amaranth, Amaranthus spinosus, this video may be especially helpful. And if you don't do it already, I hope I can convince you to try eating the roots of amaranth too. They are good food, real food for regular people. And if you have any ways that you like to prepare raw amaranth leaves or to use the roots, let me and everybody else know down in the comments below. I would really like to know. I want to take some time first so you can really get to know the small young amaranth plants. Young amaranth looks like older ones, but a tiny version. This makes them easier to ID than plants that change a lot, like some of the other great wild edible greens of the springtime, like wild lettuces or sow thistles. It has a stout stem, flexible. It looks like they're growing across from each other, but they're really not. And then the boundary of the leaves, it's wavy, but it's not serrated. All of the amaranths, though, have a notch at the tip of their leaves. Take a close look at them. All of the amaranths like disturbed soil too, and they grow in the warm weather from late spring until they're killed by frost. Now, if you have the spiny amaranth, your plants will have stickers at every place where a leaf attaches to the stem, even at this young stage. At this stage, any of the amaranth will be good for cooking. But if you want to eat the leaves raw without cooking, you want to taste the leaves. The flavor of raw amaranth leaves varies across the different kinds, and the conditions the plants are growing in can make a big difference too, like the soil, the weather, or how much water they get. Raw amaranth leaves don't keep a mild flavor for as long as the leaves of lamb's quarter plants that they often grow with. If the flavor of the amaranth leaves are too strong or too bitter, or if the leaves are tougher than you want to eat, you can always cook them or blanch them first and then cook them. But if you really want to eat the amaranth leaves raw, then you want to go look for plants that are younger than these. Can you see how these amaranth plants look just like a smaller version of those bigger ones? And the nice thing about the redroot amaranth is how that pinkish red root is so obvious on every plant. Some of the other kinds of amaranths can have pinkish roots like these too, but not all of them. So that's not a distinguishing feature for all of the amaranths. And can you see here how the back of some of the leaves can be purple? This should answer your question, Beatrice Moscoso. Be on the lookout for the same thing, this purple on the back side of the leaves, in the rest of this video. You can even see it in some of the food that I make. I think at this stage, most people would enjoy eating these amaranth plants raw. But I want to show you some even younger amaranth plants too. See how these still look like the older ones, but just smaller and even more tender? Even at this stage, those pinkish red roots are noticeable. Even at this young age, you can tell these are redroot amaranth. They have that characteristic look of amaranth. They definitely have that red, or in this case, the pink root. That's the redroot amaranth. Are they worth harvesting at this tiny size? Well, if they're in your garden, you have to do something. Almost every plant that you see here is redroot amaranth. You can see how they could overwhelm that little Swiss chard. This can happen with redroot amaranth anytime the soil is between 85 and 105 degrees Fahrenheit and that soil gets disturbed, like from rototilling or digging. Other kinds of amaranth can sprout in even hotter soil. Amaranth seeds sprout fast, days before a lot of other summer garden weeds like lamb's quarter or purslane that like the same conditions. Now this is about the smallest plants that I harvest. If you have that spiny amaranth, this may be the size that's the least painful for you to pick. But I want to go even one step further down in size to those little seedlings, the size of microgreens. To me, this is not practical for harvesting in the outdoors from the soil. But you can see what a challenging garden weed amaranth can be. It seems like this soil has more amaranth seeds than stars in the sky. And these seeds that are sprouting are just in the top ½ inch of the soil. The seeds that are deeper in the soil don't sprout. So I could keep all these seeds from sprouting by using a thick mulch and not disturbing the soil. That's what Miss OP does, and it really does work. But I admit I can be more haphazard. I just wait for the baby amaranth to get a little bigger, and then I harvest all of them. And that really does work too. The amaranth around these squash were just as thick, but I harvested them for real food. Now I'll harvest baby amaranth at this size, or even at this size, when they're right next to seedlings of garden plants I'm trying to grow. I let them get bigger when they're around larger garden plants like corn, or between garden rows like around these onions. Or, to be honest, I may not even plant anything, and I just let them get bigger for a massive harvest. That is so easy too. Now here's a precaution. Tiny amaranth does not mean tender baby amaranth. Amaranth plants flower and set seed based on the nights getting longer. So when a seed sprouts in the late summer, that plant will flower and set seed and get tough, wiry roots so fast. The time for harvesting an amaranth plant with quality leaves or tender roots for good eating is really short in the late summer. Now, an easy way to use young amaranth leaves raw with no cooking is in a smoothie. This is all from my yard. It's a mix of fruits and flowers and greens. All right, what do we have here? We've got some young amaranth there. We have got some baby lamb's quarter. You can see the coating on that's lamb's quarter. And then here we've got the bristly hawksbeard flowers. This is not a dandelion. You can tell because the sepals are not the same. That is the underside of the flowers. It tastes sweet. It's got a lot of pollen. This is a rose of Sharon, a kind of hibiscus, a rose of Sharon flower. You know the dandelion greens? This is a summertime dandelion, meaning it's in the shade on the north side. We've got some wild blackberries. We've got some spearmint. We've got purslane, the weed in the garden. We've got some purslane. It's going to be a good smoothie. It's thick. Look at that. Oh yeah. That is so good. It's not super sweet, even though it's got all that fruit in there. If you don't like dandelion greens, if you don't like amaranth, you don't want to eat the weeds, put them in a smoothie. They're so good. That is magnificent. That is so good. This smoothie is delicious, but I can't taste the flavor of the amaranth leaves at all. I can't even taste any of the greens, just the fruit. If you want to enjoy the full flavor of amaranth greens, I think the raw leaves are great in a salad, or use them as a base of raw greens for other food. These raw leaves are mild, but have enough flavor to complement even something simple like scrambled eggs. So, the young amaranth greens are really good to eat. But they are only half of what you can harvest with these young plants. I want you to think about keeping the roots on these plants and eating them too. One nice thing is that if you're weeding your garden and get a whole lot of amaranth with quality roots, it's a lot less effort to just leave the roots on. When you keep the roots though, there are some extra things to think about. First, there's going to be soil on the roots. The efficient way to clean these plants is to let them sit in a big bowl of water. This lets the plants stay hydrated, but it also lets the soil loosen up and soak off the roots. Just swish those plants around in the water and then let them sit undisturbed for a while. Even 10 or 15 minutes is fine. Now that soil is going to settle to the bottom of the bowl. So don't just pour the bowl of water and the amaranth in the sink to drain. That soil will get right back on the plants. Instead, just lift those plants out of the water, put them in a colander, and then give them a quick rinse under the faucet. There's no need to dump that soil down the sink. It's good for the outdoors or your house plants. Now, just like any other harvest, it's important to pick clean and organize, sure. But then it's important to sort through all those plants to check for any that are poor quality, or to get out any plants that are not good to eat, that are not amaranth. If you have the baby amaranth like this, having their roots on makes it a lot easier for your eyes and your brain to recognize what is and isn't amaranth to eat. Each one of those 3 big bowls only took about 3 minutes to go through, so don't rush this part. Whoa, holy smokes, who picked that? That's a mess. You don't want to have that in there. I do not want that. I don't even... Is it wild carrot or is it poison hemlock? I don't know. I don't want it in there. See how I have the towels down here? they're soaking wet, but it means that water doesn't run all over the counter. The other point is to not have just anybody do this. If you're going to have somebody help, you need somebody who's going to pay attention to detail and really look and not just shove it over and think that it doesn't matter. You really do want to look this over. Okay, take a look, see that? And if you're not fast at it, that's all right. Each one of those 3 big bowls made 1 bag of amaranth greens when I blanched them in boiling water for 2 minutes and then cooled them off. I put these bags in my freezer and I use them 1 bag at a time. When I thaw out a bag, I have a good amount of amaranth greens to use in a few different meals over the week. That is concentrated amaranth goodness. That is good food, real food for regular people. It's great. But with amaranth plants that are this size, those roots are not just good for cooking. They are good to eat raw, too. Take a look at this great salad. All of those greens are baby amaranth with their roots in there, too. I just chopped the plants up so I wouldn't notice the very tail end of the roots. It all blends in together when you chop it up. When the plants and the roots are larger, like these, they are still supple and good to eat. Even though, take a look, some of them are just starting to put on a flower head. Now with amaranth roots this size, I'll saute the whole plant. It's very simple. I just put the plants in a skillet with the water on them from rinsing. That wild field garlic honey that I put on top is delicious. I have a video about that you can see. Cooking the amaranth plants this way took only 2 minutes from start to finish, and here's how it ends up. Twirl it like spaghetti, twirl it like pasta. There you go. Right? Holy smokes. That is so good. What if the amaranth plants are bigger? Are the roots still good to eat? Well, here's some things to consider because you are going to have to figure that out in your own situation. It depends on the kind of amaranth, what conditions the plants have faced while they've been growing, and whether you want to eat the roots raw, saute them, put them in soup, or roast them like a root vegetable. These are all decent for cooking. Notice that none of these plants have started to flower yet. This one is completely different. This plant is focused on setting seed, so the roots have gotten stiff and woody. For me, that's far too old and wiry to bother with. That would be like eating a stick. When it's gotten to this stage, you may wonder whether any part of this plant is worth eating at all. Check out this video to find out. You may be surprised. I hope things are going well at your place. Thanks for watching. Bye.